Hi there, I'm Darlene, and this is the story of how my sister stood up during a family dinner and accused me, loudly, of stealing nearly $94,000 from her wedding fund. The room went silent, except for her voice. No one defended me, not even my parents. I didn't even know what I was being accused of, but Clarissa already had evidence. Have you ever been blindsided by someone you loved and thought you could trust? The smell of rosemary chicken and sweet rolls filled the house, and everything looked picture perfect, at least on the surface. The fireplace flickered, the wine glasses sparkled. Clarissa sat at the head of the table like a reigning queen, her hand resting casually on Malcolm's arm, as he laughed softly at something Lorraine had just said. I was seated at the far end, next to the window, where the draft always snuck in no matter how many towels Mom stuffed under the frame. No one looked at me much. I spoke when spoken to, smiled at the right moments. My fork clinked gently against my plate. The light was warm, but it didn't touch me. I felt like a guest at a dinner I hadn't RSVP'd for, and yet somehow I was expected to clean up after. Then Clarissa stood up. It was the way her napkin slipped from her lap that made everyone quiet, like they knew this wasn't just another toast. Her voice trembled, but not with sadness, with performance. I need to say something, she said, glancing around the table like an actress scanning her audience. The money, it's gone. Malcolm blinked. Walter raised an eyebrow. Lorraine frowned, confused. Clarissa continued. The wedding fund, $93,700. It's missing. Silence, like the air had been sucked out of the room. And I know who took it. Then her eyes found me. She stole it, Clarissa said. My own sister. Darlene took the money. I felt my breath leave me before I could say a word. Malcolm turned to look at me, not with anger, but with uncertainty. Lorraine's expression froze, hardening by the second. You? She said. Darlene, how could you? I opened my mouth, but nothing came out. Walter shook his head slowly. You've embarrassed this family enough. I wanted to speak, to scream, but Clarissa wasn't done. She reached into her purse and pulled out her phone. With one swipe, a recording played. My voice, muffled and taken out of context. Yeah, I'll hold it until after the wedding. It was a conversation from weeks ago, one where I offered to help deposit a check, a normal, boring, helpful sentence, but now it was poison. You said you'd keep it safe, Clarissa said. So where is it now? I shook my head. That's not what— You planned this? Lorraine asked sharply. Was that the plan all along? I turned to Malcolm. You know I wouldn't. He looked away. They already decided the ending, I thought. I was just filling in the lines. I stood slowly, my legs suddenly heavy. No one moved. No one stopped me. Clarissa didn't hide her satisfaction. Her eyes sparkled with it. As I reached the door, she followed. I warned you never to make me look bad, she whispered, just loud enough for me to hear. I didn't respond. I didn't look back. Outside, the cold air hit harder than I expected. My fingers fumbled with the keys as I reached my car. I slid into the driver's seat, slammed the door shut, and sat there, silent, frozen. My phone buzzed. Unknown number. One message. You don't know what she's capable of. The thing about being forgotten is, it rarely happens by accident. It's quiet, practiced, almost graceful, like a dance everyone else seems to know the steps to. The wedding was at a grand banquet hall in downtown Dallas. Chandeliers hung like stars trying too hard to impress, and every table was dressed better than I was. I arrived 15 minutes early, like I always do. Just enough time to get a lay of the room before it filled with people who'd pretend not to notice me. A girl in black handed me a folded card. Table 11, she said, already moving on to the next guest. I looked down. Table 11. I don't know what I expected. A seat near the front? A quiet acknowledgement of what I had helped with? I had steamed her veil, carried her bouquet through a rainstorm. But family was Clarissa's performance piece, and I was no longer in the cast. From where I sat, I could see the head table glowing under soft lighting. Clarissa and Malcolm looked like a magazine spread. My view was slightly blocked by a server's station and a large ficus tree. Appropriate. Clarissa walked by in a flurry of white and perfume. She didn't even glance at me. I looked down at the speech notes left on the tables. Her maid of honor, Malcolm's best friend, Even her college roommate had a paragraph. My name wasn't there. During the reception, people clapped and laughed, glasses clinked, stories were told. Not one included me. I wasn't invisible. They chose not to see me. Sometime after the cake, I went to refill my glass of water. I wasn't listening for anything, but I heard my name, quiet and sharp like a needle. "She's better off not up here," my mother was saying to a woman in a gold shawl. "Her energy doesn't match the joy today." The woman responded, "Isn't that her sister?" My mother smiled. "Some people aren't made for celebration." I didn't spill my water. I didn't confront her. I just turned and walked back to table 11. The dinner went on. My food went cold. I stood and left before the bouquet toss. Driving home, I could still see them smiling for photos. I could hear Malcolm's toast. I could picture Lorraine adjusting her pearl necklace just before another picture. Not one of them turned in my direction. I used to braid Clarissa's hair for picture day. I used to lie next to her on the floor when thunder made her cry. She used to call me her safe place. So when she pointed at me across the dinner table and called me a thief, it wasn't a shock. It was confirmation. When I got home, the hallway light had blown out. I reached my door and paused. Something was taped to it. A small envelope. Inside was a photo from the wedding. Clarissa and Malcolm, the bridesmaids, the parents. I had been standing on the far left when the picture was taken. In the version taped to my door, I was cropped out entirely. On the back, written in sharp black ink, "You ruined her day." The morning before the wedding, the sky was heavy with humidity. Clouds clung low like a warning no one cared to hear. I was sitting on the porch steps, sipping coffee that had long since gone cold, when Mom poked her head out the front door. "Darlene, I need to borrow your car for a quick run." I nodded. No hesitation, no questions, just like always. She didn't say thank you. She just grabbed the keys and shut the door behind her, her heels echoing down the driveway like punctuation. She returned that evening, dropping the keys on the kitchen counter without a word. The gaslight blinked when I turned the ignition. On the passenger seat, a lipstick-stained receipt from a bridal boutique. The car smelled like lavender and dry cleaning. "This thing barely drives," she muttered, brushing past me. "You really need to get your life in order." She didn't look back, and I didn't answer. They never had to say I wasn't enough. They just showed me. The next morning, I stopped by the boutique to pick up Clarissa's emergency missing garter she'd texted about. The clerk smiled brightly. "Oh, and thank you again for delivering the gown yesterday. That was really kind of you." I froze. Delivering the gown? I hadn't, but I didn't need to ask. The pieces fit too easily now. Mom had used my car to transport the dress, told the shop it was me, told them I was the one who'd handle it. And they believed her, of course. Why wouldn't they? Just like that, I wasn't the sister. I was the help. I drove home in silence, the kind that doesn't settle. It swells. On the way back, I passed a billboard of a bride and groom, smiling into a future paid for in full. The kind of image Clarissa lived for. The kind she edited me out of. I thought of the photo albums from when we were kids. Clarissa in her church dresses. Clarissa blowing out candles. Clarissa posing at the beach. Me? Always the shadow behind the flash. The one holding the umbrella. The one closing the door so the picture could look cleaner. I didn't cry that night. I opened my notebook and turned to a fresh page. At the top I wrote, "Things I'm no longer available for." And underneath, apologizing for being uncomfortable at my own erasure. Driving other people's dreams while mine rust in the garage. Being someone's unpaid character witness while they erase me from the story. Clarissa's wedding reception began at 6. Table 11 sat near the bathrooms. My name tag was still taped to the chair. But the seat was empty. It was raining the night I saw her. Not a dramatic movie-style downpour. Just the kind of steady drizzle that soaked into your coat without making a sound. I'd parked across the street from the cafe, just killing time before heading home, when I looked up, and there she was. Clarissa. Sitting inside laughing. And not with Malcolm. The man with her leaned across the table, tucked a strand of her hair behind her ear. She tilted her head toward him like it was muscle memory. Then they kissed. Not a goodbye kiss, not a mistake, a kiss that said, You are mine, and I've done this before. I didn't move, didn't knock on the glass or storm in. I watched. Let the betrayal seep in like the rain into my shoes. I wanted to believe that some lies, if left untouched, wouldn't explode, that maybe this could be one of them. The next day, the world kept spinning. Clarissa posted a filtered photo of her bridal manicure. Malcolm uploaded a reel of them choosing centerpieces. My name didn't come up once, not even in the comments. I stayed silent, not because I was afraid, but because a part of me still hoped she'd choose me, just once. That night I got a call. Clarissa. She didn't say hello, just breathed for a moment before speaking. If someone saw something, you'd tell me, right? I didn't answer. She continued softer. You wouldn't let one moment ruin everything I've worked for? There it was. Not a question. A warning wrapped in sentiment. I imagined her sitting on the edge of her bed, freshly moisturized, staring at her reflection while delivering lines rehearsed in the mirror. I ended the call without a word. Then I sat in the dark, asking myself what I'd just agreed to by staying quiet. Did I owe her silence? Had I ever owed her anything? I remembered her at 14, crouched in the hallway with mascara running down her face, whispering, "Please just tell Mom it was your idea." And I had. Again and again and again. Every time I kept her secret, a piece of me shrunk into something easier to dismiss, easier to crop out. Until now, when there was almost nothing left. 2 days later, a box arrived on my doorstep. The wedding favors. Inside was a tiny candle, a card with their names in gold script, and a note folded carefully at the bottom. Darlene. Thanks for always being the one who cleans up my messes. Clarissa. I sat with the note in my hand for a long time. Not angry, not even surprised. Just done. I placed it on the counter and opened my laptop. One tab, Texas defamation laws. Another, how to recover deleted text messages. She wanted me quiet, but I was finished being the supporting character in a story she'd written with me in pencil, ready to be erased. The house looked the same, but the air had changed. Maybe it was the way Lorraine had lit a cinnamon candle in the entryway, or how Walter stayed in his recliner the entire visit, arms crossed like a gate that wouldn't open. The invitation had sounded sweet enough. Just a little talk, a family moment, the kind of language that came with tea and quiet ambushes. I sat at the edge of the sofa, legs tucked politely under me. Lorraine placed a steaming cup on the coffee table in front of me, her smile practiced, brittle around the edges. I've been thinking, she said, stirring her own tea, even though it didn't need it, about the Fort Worth property. Here it came. It's a lot to manage, isn't it, for someone who doesn't even live there? Walter cleared his throat like he'd been cued. Clarissa could really use that land to start fresh. She and Malcolm are planning for something long-term. I didn't speak, not right away. My hand stayed folded in my lap. The cup of tea sat untouched. They always sound reasonable while pushing me off the edge, I thought. Lorraine leaned in, voice syrupy. It would really show maturity, Darlene. Grace. I looked at her, really looked, and for the first time in years, I didn't see my mother. I saw the woman who had always chosen Clarissa first, the woman who'd called me too intense when I cried at 10, the woman who edited me out of stories and framed it as mercy. That night, Malcolm texted me. Your mom said you're thinking of letting the land go. That's really mature of you. I stared at the screen. I hadn't said that. I hadn't said anything. The next morning, I asked Lorraine directly, Did you tell Malcolm I was giving up the land? She didn't flinch. Well, she said, you've never been one for stability, sweetheart. We just assumed. They weren't asking. They were announcing my erasure, softly. Later that evening, I opened the family group chat. I stared at the blinking cursor for a full minute before I typed, No, I will not be giving up what was meant for me. Not this time. I muted the thread. I didn't need to watch it unravel. I wasn't being rebellious. I was just, finally, being visible. The next day, a letter arrived. Thick cream paper, real estate firm header, a preliminary offer for the Fort Worth property, already initiated, already signed, under Clarissa's name. I stood at my kitchen counter, letter in hand, heart thudding like a gavel. They were trying to sell what hadn't even left my hands yet. It was just a subject line. Plain, unassuming, the kind you usually delete without opening. Loan repayment reminder, account ending in 3,482. I stared at it for a full minute before clicking. The email was from a financial institution I didn't recognize. It thanked me for my recent payment and reminded me that the next installment was due soon. For a $12,000 personal loan. Opened 2 months ago. 2 months ago. Right in the middle of Clarissa's wedding chaos. I hadn't applied for any loan. I hadn't signed a single form. I called the number listed in the email, my voice calm in the way people get when they're trying not to scream. The woman on the line was polite, asked me for my information, confirmed my identity, then paused. "Oh," she said slowly. "This account was opened in your name, but the email on file isn't the one you're calling from, and the contact number doesn't match either." I felt my grip tighten on the edge of the kitchen counter. "Can you tell me who opened it?" I asked. "I'm afraid we can't disclose that without a formal dispute," she replied. But I already knew. It wasn't a guess. It was a certainty that settled into my bones like cold. This wasn't just about lies. This was identity theft wrapped in siblinghood. That night, I didn't cry. I didn't pace or punch pillows or throw anything. I opened my laptop, created a folder. Clarissa Truth. I started saving things, old texts, screenshots of messages that seemed harmless then, but now read like breadcrumbs. Voice notes, dates, details. I wasn't building revenge. I was building a record. I remembered 10th grade. Clarissa had used my school ID to buy makeup at a mall kiosk. When the charge came back unpaid, I was the one who got called into the office. I was the one who had to explain to Dad why there was a debt on my student account. She apologized once, with a smile. "You know they'll believe you. You're the responsible one." And I had believed her, believed that forgiveness would somehow be enough. She took everything and left me the consequences. And I let her. Not anymore. The next day, I walked into my workplace's legal office. I wasn't there for a case. I wasn't looking to sue anyone. I was looking for understanding. I asked the paralegal at the front desk, "If someone uses your identity to take out a loan, how do you prove it wasn't you?" She looked up, her brows furrowed slightly. "Depends," she said, then leaned forward. "How well do you know the thief?" It was supposed to be harmless. A casual Sunday brunch at the corner cafe with faded menus and mismatched mugs. Clarissa had chosen the place, of course. Something about wanting to keep things light. We sat around a wobbly table near the window, Mom with her polite laughter, Walter glued to the sports section, and Malcolm trying, always trying, to keep up the illusion of normal. Then it happened. He leaned forward, called across the table, "Clara, could you pass the sugar?" The word hovered in the air. "Clara." I felt it hit the space between my ribs before my brain could process it. No one corrected him. Not Mom, not Walter. Clarissa raised her glass and sipped, the corners of her mouth twitching. I passed the sugar. "You can survive being excluded from the table," I thought. "What breaks you is when they stop saying your name." After that, I excused myself. In the bathroom, I locked the stall, stared at the cracked mirror. Whispered my name out loud. "Darlene." Again. "Darlene." Like saying it could anchor me back to myself. Later that afternoon, I ran into Mrs. Howerton from the neighborhood. She smiled, touching my arm gently. "Clarissa told us you've been unwell lately," she said softly. "That you struggle sometimes." I froze. She continued with a kind face that made it worse. "But it's brave of you to come out and be part of the community anyway." I nodded, thanked her, walked away with hands that wouldn't stop shaking. That evening, I opened the group chat, scrolled, found the words Clarissa had planted. "Darlene has always been sensitive. I worry sometimes. She doesn't always remember things clearly." They weren't just painting me out of the picture. They were rewriting my face, my thoughts, my mind. I wasn't just being erased. I was being replaced, with a version easier to dismiss, a version that couldn't be trusted. I opened the folder on my desktop, the one I'd been filling in pieces, screenshots, receipts, bank records. I created a new subfolder, Character Assassination. I added the texts, the voice memos, a birthday card Clarissa once gave me, where she wrote, Thanks for being the sane one in the family. Even that felt twisted now, because this wasn't new. She'd been planting this story for years. If she wanted to erase me, she should have made sure I wasn't still holding the pen. They thought I came to apologize. Clarissa sat at the head of the room like she always did. Elevated, poised, untouchable. Lorraine had arranged the living room just like she did for holidays, with throw pillows fluffed and candles lit in a way that tried too hard. Walter occupied his recliner in the corner, arms folded, the ghost of a smirk on his face. Malcolm sat nearest the door. I walked in with a folder tucked under my arm and a silence I had earned. No one asked what was inside. They thought I was here to fix things. Instead, I opened the folder. "I'd like to begin," I said, voice steady. From the stack, I pulled the first sheet, Clarissa's boutique loan agreement, co-signed by both Grandma Evelyn and myself. I placed it gently on the coffee table. $18,450, I said, looking directly at my father. That's how much she borrowed. Clarissa blinked. Lorraine shifted. She told me she never took anything, I continued. She said she had it all handled. These are receipts. And these, I laid down a second sheet, are her messages denying any of it ever happened. Walter paled. Lorraine opened her mouth, but I raised my hand. There's more. I pulled out a small speaker, placed it beside the documents, pressed play. Clarissa's voice poured into the room, dripping with casual cruelty. It only makes sense that I take over the land. Darlene's just not the stable choice. I let the audio finish, then reached into the folder one last time. This time it was a letter, yellowed around the edges, signed and notarized, a letter from Grandma Evelyn. In it, she wrote that her will would remain unchanged, that she had no intention of transferring anything to Clarissa, that her faith, her trust, was in me. She called me her true constant. I didn't read that part out loud. I just let it sit. Malcolm was the first to move. He stood, slow and quiet. You used me, he said to Clarissa, and you tried to erase her. He walked to the door, didn't look back. Lorraine dropped onto the couch, hands trembling. Walter stood and left the room without a word. Clarissa remained. She didn't cry, didn't scream. She reached for the papers. I slid them away. I kept your secret once, I said. That's not who I am anymore. She looked at me. For the first time, she looked small. The floors creaked like they were remembering someone. The windows rattled in the wind, though the glass didn't break. There was a kind of peace to that, being shaken but still standing. I stood barefoot in the kitchen of the Fort Worth house, the one Grandma Evelyn left me. The box in front of me held only a few essentials: a kettle, some books, and a mug with a small chip on the handle. Nothing glamorous, but all mine. I didn't leave them. I just stopped waiting for them to see me. The house was quiet, but it wasn't lonely. It didn't echo the way Clarissa's wedding hall had. It didn't silence me. It held me. I moved room to room with a steadiness I hadn't felt in years. And then I saw it, tucked between a folded deed and an old letter Grandma had scribbled, the memory of a paper I never signed. They had pushed it across the table months ago. Just a formality, they said, for family peace. I hadn't made a scene. I hadn't torn it up or shouted. I had just stood up, walked out, and left the paper unsigned. Now my name sat firmly on the deed, proof that silence doesn't always mean surrender. Clarissa hadn't reached out, not once. But her absence was loud in the spaces she used to fill with noise. Some mutuals texted, "We didn't know. You should have said something. We're sorry we took sides." But they had known. They'd just found it easier not to listen. Lorraine sent one message. "Your sister is struggling. I hope you're happy." I deleted it without replying. They'll spin it however they want. That's their story. Mine is quieter. And it's mine. The day I visited Grandma's grave, the clouds sat low but didn't rain. I brought a copy of the notarized letter and a Polaroid of the house. I placed both against the headstone, smoothing the edges down against the wind. "You gave me more than land," I whispered. "You gave me something that no one else ever did. A choice." I didn't cry. I exhaled. That night, I sat by the front window and wrote in my journal. She said I stole from her, but all I ever wanted was to be seen. I stole nothing. I claimed what was already mine. A knock at the door pulled me back. I opened it to find the neighbor, holding a pie in trembling hands. "Welcome to the block," she said. "We've been meaning to stop by." I smiled. Genuinely, maybe healing doesn't begin with forgiveness. Maybe it starts with quiet. And for once, I didn't flinch when someone said my name. Sometimes the hardest thing isn't being pushed away. It's realizing how long you've stayed quiet, hoping to be pulled back in. I spent years trying to earn a seat at a table that was never set for me. But when I finally stopped asking for room, I found something far greater: peace. If you've ever been made to feel like you don't belong, let this be your reminder. You don't have to prove your worth to people who only see you as a shadow of yourself. Walk away, not out of spite, but out of self-respect. So tell me, have you ever been the one who stayed silent too long? Or were you the one who spoke and no one listened? Drop a 1 in the comments if this story touched you. Let me know what state you're watching from. I'd love to see where this community is growing. And if this video gave you even one moment of clarity, hit that subscribe button and join us for more real stories that speak from the heart. Until next time, take care of your voice. It matters.